could mirror the architecture of any building that was there. So, I mean, it would be in the interest of the well as I would think any development there for it to blend in. We wouldn't want to stand out. We wouldn't want people to notice it. So it would be, you know, incumbent upon us to have the architecture match whatever was there or going to be there.
You know, my comments weren't about the architecture. It's about
Right.
the electric department has fronted the money to buy that land. At some point, we need to deal with, if a portion of it becomes the water utility, then there's an issue of keeping straight whose dollar is invested in the well. It also was a premise of the purchase of that land that the Gobi Street frontage was the most valuable land from a real estate point of view, and preserving as much of that as we could for sale in the future gave us the best return of the money that the electric utility has advanced for the whole piece. But as far as the points I was trying to follow up on were, if the water goes into the system on Orchard or it goes into the system on Gobi, isn't particularly material from a standpoint of the system's operation.
Right.
If there's already a 20-foot easement along the west boundary of this parcel, is that what I'm understanding?
I do remember that, and I'm just not sure who that easement's to. So I don't know if that, I'm not sure who that's encumbered by.
All right. If that easement makes it so that land is encumbered, then having the additional utilities through it is not an issue for me. But if it diminishes the value for our recovery, then I have a concern and would advocate that we connect to Orchard through land that we intend to retain. But, you know, that's an economic decision based upon the comparative costs of the routes and where the well actually winds up.
If I could follow up on that.
Yes.
Would you want to do that at the expense, you know, if it was a riskier place to drill the well because it was closer to well 4, would you still want to do that because it would maximize the value of that other piece of property, just sort of in balancing the two?
I asked the question of a couple of geotechnical folks regarding the size of cone of depression, what's typical. And I think it's important to address that in this discussion, since we don't have a great deal of data about these specific soils, these specific locations, that the discussion winds up being general. We're trying to apply some general concepts to a specific site. There may be some differences between the reality and the general statements. In general, cone of depression's diameter would be, see, if we're 200-foot deep well, it would be an 800-foot diameter cone of depression, which would mean that from the well, we'd be 400 feet to the edge of the cone. And if we had another well, another 400 feet from there, we would need 800 foot from well to well, not 1,000 feet, or more than 1,000 feet is better. So without the data, I can't say that 1,000 foot is enough or too much. Based on the general statements I've heard by people that I trust in this industry, 800 foot is the minimum, not 1,000 feet.
Yes.
So do we need to decide to tell staff if we are going to move forward with tests, where they should test? I mean, should they test on Orchard and does the exact spot? I mean, I would imagine the purpose of the test is to find the exact location where there's water. So do we need to decide tonight, okay, you know, you can do a test over on the eastern portion closer to the closer to Orchard or the western portion further away? Is that something that we have to figure out
I
before we let you go?
I think that is, if we're talking about a drastic difference, I think that is something that should be, maybe we say we test both locations but right now our specifications are set up for that western. And another data point we don't have is that it depends what develops there. I mean, this could be no impact. Like I said, if there's a parking lot up front, it's almost no impact. If it's something else, it could be an impact. So, that's the other part we really don't know is how this would impact the future development. But I do think that we do need the direction on the location.
I mean, wells aren't very big. The ones I've seen, they don't take up a lot of room. It couldn't be adjacent to right on the property, but on the eastern side where the substation will be. You just stick it in the corner. If there were water to be found at that spot, why would it even have to interfere with what could potentially be the Gobi side parcel?
We had considered that site in the original well siting study and had decided not to pursue it because of safety concerns. You have an operational substation, so it would be difficult to get a drilling rig in there.
It's not, but it's
I'm
not
talking
operational
about,
now.
I'm talking about the, no, not the proposed. I thought you were talking about the existing substation that
No,
was
the
in operation.
proposed. Why not just do it? Because that property that we bought is huge, and we talked about subdividing it, so
Right.
isn't there enough room on the southern piece where the substation will be to also have a well?
It gets back to that issue. The closer we get to well 4, as you go south, you get closer and closer to well 4. And so that's what we were trying to do, is keep it as far away.
And we're the south boundary of that parcel is nominally 1,000 feet or just shy of 1,000 feet from well 4, if Google's believable.
Yes, I believe that's true.
Scaled it on Google a couple of times, and it seems like it's just shy of 1,000 feet to the south boundary line.
We can't talk about this because the deputy director gave me a map with that exact thing on it, and I didn't include it in the staff report, so she'll hit me over the head if we continue this conversation. No.
Well, I'm just telling you about something I looked at
yeah.
on Google, so
We're assuming everyone understands what Google means. Okay, Councilmember Thomas.
I've never completely understood what Google means. Two points. We did a test well on Brush Street, but the negotiations with the owner of the property have broken down or reached a complete impasse.
No, they haven't been completed, and that owner, it was in discussions with the city attorney, but that property is not available to us right now within this time frame.
Okay. And there's not a quick a quick fix for that one?
No, there's not.
there actually is.
I'm going to ask about CEQA. Do we need a CEQA report on this project?
The director of planning and the city attorney have this as a categorical exemption.
Categorical exemption because of an emergency?
No, based on, I can't remember their exact findings, but it was crafted by those two.
It was due to the emergency. Yeah, it was due to the emergency situation, the need to bring a water supply in as quickly as possible.
And that's why it bypasses California Environmental Quality Act?
Yes.
So the noise issue that the neighbors, they just have to suck it up.
The noise from...
Well, the wells make noise.
Pumps do.
Oh, pumps do.
Wells are very silent.
So, I mean, there are neighbors, there are people, there are residents